I heard it before I saw it. A sound I'll never forget. It was like a child's whimper, only deeper, raspier. At first, I thought it was just the wind messing with my head again. These mountains have a way of playing tricks on you, especially when you've been out here too long. But then I heard it again. Closer. Real. I dropped my backpack and scrambled toward the sound, boots sliding on loose gravel. My heart started hammering in my chest. There was a bend just ahead, past the fallen pine. That's where the cliff edge breaks off, where the path ends and everything below turns to rock. And that's when I saw it. A bear cub, curled in on itself like a broken toy, its fur matted with blood and dirt. One hind leg was twisted under its body at an unnatural angle. I froze. My brain couldn't catch up to what my eyes were seeing. It lifted its head slightly, just enough to look straight at me. I saw its eyes. Not wild, not feral, just scared. I dropped to my knees. Jesus, what the hell happened to you? There was no mother in sight. No sound but the faint whistle of wind through the trees. No signs of struggle. Just this tiny, broken thing lying beneath the cliff. I should have left it there. That's what you're supposed to do. Let nature run its course. That's what every manual says. But manuals don't look you in the eyes. I stood there for a full minute, weighing everything. The distance back to the ranger station. The climb. The wait. The risk. The rules. And then the cub let out another soft, hoarse cry. That decided it. I pulled my jacket off, crawled down toward it, slow and deliberate. It didn't fight. Didn't even flinch. I wrapped it in the coat as gently as I could, feeling its fragile ribs move under my fingers. It was warm, but barely. I radioed the station. Nothing. Dead signal. Figures. This area was a notorious dead zone, so I carried it. 3 hours down the trail, through mud and rock, with 30 pounds of limp fur and broken bones against my chest. I slipped twice. The second time, I nearly went over the edge. At one point, I thought I felt the cub stop breathing, but then its chest rose again, shallow and weak. By the time I reached my truck, I could barely feel my arms. I had a med kit in the back seat, barely enough to treat a scratch, let alone something like this. But I did what I could. Cleaned the blood from its face, bandaged the leg as best I could, gave it water from the bottle cap. It drank. Not much, but it drank. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I drove straight back to my cabin, faster than I should have on that narrow dirt road. The tires nearly skidded off twice. But I made it. Inside, I laid the cub on a folded towel near the fireplace. It didn't move. Just lay there, breathing slow, eyes closed. I sat on the floor next to it. My hands were shaking. Not from the weight or the climb. From something else. Something was off. This wasn't just a fall. The cub had bruises, old ones. A small gash behind the ear. Patches of missing fur. It looked like it had been through hell before it even hit that cliff. And then I remembered something. 2 days ago, I'd heard shots. Distant, muffled. I assumed it was poachers or someone screwing around where they shouldn't be. I even hiked in the direction, but found nothing. Maybe I didn't look hard enough. Now I wasn't so sure. I reached for my phone. No signal. I turned on the satellite receiver. Still searching. Figures. The cub stirred. Its paw twitched slightly. Then a soft noise, like a sigh. I leaned in. "You're not supposed to be here, are you?" I whispered. But neither am I. I didn't sleep that night. Just sat there watching the little rise and fall of its chest. Wondering who else might be watching. Wondering what I had just dragged into my life. The cub made it through the night. Barely. By morning, it was breathing a little steadier, but it still hadn't moved much. I crushed up a few antibiotic pills, ones I had left over from a leg wound last year, and mixed the powder with water. I dipped my finger in and let a drop fall on its tongue. It gagged, then swallowed. That felt like a victory. I spent the next few hours cleaning up the place. I wasn't expecting company, but I felt like someone might show up. Maybe because I hadn't told a soul what happened. Maybe because something deep in my gut told me this wasn't over. I didn't want to name it. That's where people screw up. You name it, you care too much. But I started calling it Little One in my head. And the name stuck whether I liked it or not. Around noon, I drove up the service road, parked by the edge of the northern trail, and headed out on foot. I wanted to see the cliff again in daylight. Maybe I missed something. The wind had shifted. The air was sharp, almost electric. The snow hadn't fully melted on the shaded side, and the muddy areas were slick. As I reached the ridge, I scanned the rocks below, where I'd found the cub. There was dried blood still staining the stones. I climbed down and looked around. That's when I saw them. Tracks faint, but fresh enough. Human. Heavy boots. Someone had been up here recently. But there was something else. A pattern in the dirt that didn't match any animal I knew. Like something had been dragged. I followed the trail uphill for maybe 10 minutes until it vanished into brush. Nothing else. No shell casings, no bags, no campfire remnants. Just silence. On the way back, I nearly stepped on what was left of a fox. Or what I assumed was a fox. It had been torn apart, ribs exposed, face missing. The kill wasn't clean. Not even typical predator messy. It looked angry. That's what stopped me cold. Predators kill to eat. This felt personal. I stood there for a while, taking it in. Then I heard someone coming down the trail. I turned and saw a man in his 50s, lean build, weathered face, camo jacket. He was carrying a rifle slung across his back. "You lost something?" he asked. "Just looking around." "You local?" "Jake," he said, extending a gloved hand. "Live down the hill. You're the ranger, right?" "Mike." I nodded. "Heard shots up here a couple days ago. Figured someone was fooling around." "You hunting?" He shook his head. "Just tracking. Saw a bear a few weeks ago. Might have had cubs. Been keeping tabs. Alone. Always." There was something in the way he said it. Dry. Final. We talked a few more minutes. I told him about the fox remains. He just nodded like it was normal. Then he glanced at the bloodstain below. "That from your find?" "What find?" He gave me a look like he was testing me. Then smiled faintly. "Just saying, something fell hard. Rocks don't bleed." He turned and walked off before I could say more. Back home, little one was stirring. When I reached for the bowl, its paw twitched toward it. I helped guide it, and it licked the surface, still shaky but determined. The broken leg looked worse in daylight, swollen and dark, but I didn't dare move it more than I had. That night, I reviewed the trail cam footage again. Still nothing new, but I couldn't shake Jake's tone. He knew more than he let on. The next morning, I checked the satellite receiver. Still nothing. I had to make a decision. The cub wouldn't survive long in this condition. But if I brought it into town, too many questions would follow. I needed time. Answers. I packed a small bag, grabbed my camera, and hiked up toward the southern ridge, opposite of where I found the cub. There had been sightings of bear activity there last spring. After an hour of hiking, I spotted something near a fallen log. Not a bear. A trap. A steel one, partially buried under leaves. Fresh meat still inside. My skin went cold. Traps are illegal in these parts. No one's supposed to be laying them. And this one looked new. I took pictures. Lots of them. Then I marked the coordinates in my notebook. When I turned back, I realized just how quiet the forest had become. Too quiet. I picked up my pace. Made it home by dusk. Little one was awake. Really awake this time. It looked at me, blinked slowly, then made a soft sound. Almost like a question. I sat next to it, heart pounding, and whispered, "I think someone wanted you gone. And now I need to find out why." Little one was stronger by the third morning. Still couldn't stand, but its eyes followed me around the cabin now. It growled softly if I moved too fast. That was a good sign. I kept my distance. Fed it by hand, but never tried to touch more than I needed to. This wasn't a pet. It never would be. I wasn't here to tame it. Just to keep it breathing long enough for it to return to what it was meant to be. I had to fight the instinct to comfort it. Every time it whimpered in its sleep or flinched in pain, I wanted to do something, anything, to make it stop. But I didn't. I sat in silence, beside the fire, and let it exist in its own pain. That's what wild things do. They suffer quietly. I checked the trail cams that afternoon. I'd moved 2 of them closer to the area near the cliff, hoping to catch something, anything. I fast-forwarded through hours of wind-blown trees and raccoons. And then I saw it. A figure. Night footage. Timestamped 2 nights before I found the cub. Someone moving just above the cliffside. Big frame. Definitely human. Walking with purpose. And then, for a second, the figure stopped and turned. The face was too shadowed to make out. But the body language, calm, casual, stood out. They weren't lost. They weren't hiking. They were waiting. I rewound it a dozen times. Paused. Enhanced. Nothing. But I couldn't shake the feeling. I went back to the trap site later that day. Brought gloves this time. Dug around it a bit, checking for footprints, markings, anything that might help. Found a cigarette butt, still dry under the brush. Marlboro. Not many locals smoked those. I pocketed it in a plastic bag. On the way back, I took the long trail, up past the high ridge. That's where the elk used to graze in spring. I hadn't seen them in over a year. Halfway through the climb, I spotted a glint between trees. Another trap. This one was different. A snare, hidden under moss, rigged with a tripwire. Not meant for animals, not really. Or maybe not just animals. I marked the location, photographed everything. Someone was setting up these traps methodically, carefully, and near active bear routes. It hit me then. The cub didn't fall. It ran. Something chased it, drove it toward the cliff, maybe even off it. Back home, little one was sitting up. For the first time. Not steady, but upright. It looked at me like it recognized something. Maybe not me, but the rhythm of my presence. I opened the window to let in fresh air. It growled again, barely audible, but didn't flinch. I sat across the room, notebook in hand, listing everything. Bruises not from the fall. The trap with fresh bait. The cigarette butt. The shadowed figure. 2 separate trap types, 2 locations. This wasn't random. That night, I didn't sleep. Just listened. Around midnight, I heard a crack outside. Not a branch falling. Something deliberate. Slow steps on gravel. I grabbed the flashlight and stepped out onto the porch. Nothing. Just the sound of wind. I scanned the trees. Then I saw it. A single set of eyes, low to the ground. Reflective. Watching. Then gone. Next morning, I checked the cam by the cabin. Nothing. But someone had moved the angle by just a few degrees. Enough to miss part of the clearing. I tightened every lock. Every window. Later that day, I went down to the supply shed to get more antiseptic. As I opened the door, something slipped from the top shelf and hit the floor. A note. Just one word, scribbled in charcoal on old paper. Leave. I stared at it for a long time, then burned it in the fire. Little one stirred from its sleep, let out a sound like a yawn mixed with a growl. It was healing, but I wasn't sure if either of us was safe anymore. I'd seen enough to know one thing. Someone out there didn't just want animals dead. They wanted silence. And I had just become a problem. By the time the 4th night rolled in, I had every window covered, every lock double-checked. The forest no longer felt like home. It felt like a hallway with too many doors I couldn't close. Little one had started limping a few steps at a time. The leg was healing, crooked, but functional. It stuck close to the fireplace and flinched at sudden noises. We were alike in that. I knew I had to confront Jake. I found him late afternoon, near the stream just below Raven's Bluff. He was checking something under a fallen log when he noticed me. "You've been wandering a lot lately," I said, keeping my tone flat. He gave me a look, half amused, half annoyed. "Just tracking. It's what I do." "You see anything strange out here? Traps maybe? Illegal ones." "Why? You finding something you shouldn't." "Found more than I wanted." He leaned on his rifle. "You think I'm behind it?" "I think someone is. And you're always nearby." He didn't answer, just stared at me for a moment too long. Then he muttered, "You don't want to dig too deep out here, Mike. Some things stay buried for good reason." Not a threat, just advice. From someone who's seen what happens to folks who play hero. I left it at that. But I didn't walk back. I ran, straight through the trees until I reached my truck. That night, I barely slept. Around 3 in the morning, a bang woke me. Not from inside. From outside. Metal. I grabbed my flashlight, gun, and opened the back door slowly. The supply shed was open. I crept through the dark, stepping slow, listening. Then I saw them. 2 figures. Silhouettes against the trees. One holding something. Maybe a bat, maybe a crowbar. They weren't in a hurry. They were standing like they were waiting for me to notice. I raised the light. They ducked back fast. I ran to the cabin and slammed the door shut, heart hammering. Checked the footage in real time. One of the cams was out. Static. Another one caught the last few seconds. 2 people walking toward the trees. Faces hidden. One turned back and stared into the lens. Then lifted something and smashed it. I packed in under 10 minutes. Little one squealed when I wrapped it in blankets. I whispered to it the whole time, trying to stay calm. My hands were shaking too hard to drive straight. I knew a place. Old ranger station from the 70s, deep in the West Woods. It was falling apart, but the roof still held. No one went there anymore. I drove without headlights for most of the way, bouncing along dirt roads and praying I didn't hit a stump. Got there by dawn. Inside, dust covered everything. I cleared out a corner, laid little one down, made sure there was food, water, warmth. Then I turned on the satellite phone. I had one contact I hadn't used in years. Gary, retired enforcement. Used to be my mentor. Now lived 2 towns over. I told him everything. He was silent for a long time. Then he said, "You shouldn't be in that fight, Mike." Too late. I'm in. And I've got proof. Traps. Video. A wounded cub. He sighed. Jake still sniffing around. You know him? Used to. Until he got mixed up with Logan's crew. That name hit like a brick. Logan ran a ring in the late 90s. Wildlife trafficking. Cubs. Pelts. Organs. Disappeared after 2 arrests fell through. Rumor was he still operated small time through hunters and hikers. You think it's them again? I asked. I know it is. But if you go public, they'll bury you. Quietly, I sat in the dusty room, staring at the cracked ceiling. I've got a cub who survived what they did. And I'm not backing off. Then hide that cub, Mike. Real good. And don't trust anyone. Not even uniforms. He hung up. I stayed in the station the rest of the day. I nailed boards over the windows, swept the floor, lit the stove. Little one curled up near my coat, watching me. And I knew this wasn't the end. It was just the middle of a night that wasn't going to end with dawn. 3 days passed in that old ranger station. I barely left, only once to refill the water canisters from the stream. Little one was walking now. Limping, sure, but with purpose. Sometimes it would press its snout against the boards over the window, sniffing at the outside air. That broke me more than I'd expected. The way it would sit by the door, quietly listening to the sounds outside, reminded me of a prisoner waiting for a sentence that was never explained. It didn't know why it was stuck there, and I didn't know how to explain it. The forest was calling him back, and part of me knew I couldn't stop it for long. He was born out there, under the stars and branches, not under rooftops. I could delay it, maybe, but not deny it. But first, I had something to finish. I made the drive to town just after sunset, left the cub safe in the back room of the station, barricaded with supplies and food. Before leaving, I knelt beside it and said, "One more night. Then you're free." It blinked at me slowly, like it understood more than I wanted it to. I didn't go to the police station. Gary had been clear, some of the uniforms had ties to the old network. Instead, I went to the local diner. The kind of place where deals still happen in whispers over coffee. Same peeling wallpaper. Same humming ceiling fan. Same faces pretending they didn't know more than they did. Jake was there. Back corner, same booth as always. I walked up and sat down across from him without a word. The waitress glanced at us, then quickly looked away. He didn't look surprised, just sipped his drink, then said, "So, you finally ready to walk away?" "No, I'm ready to burn it down." His eyes narrowed. "You don't know what you're playing with." "Don't need to. I know what I saw. I know what I found. And I know what you left behind." He leaned in. "You think you can stop Logan? He's not some backwoods thug anymore. He funds half the operations around here. Keeps things quiet. You blow this open, you hurt a lot of people. Kids, mothers, wildlife. How many more cubs have to die before that matters? How many more snared legs and missing mothers does it take for someone to call it evil?" He didn't answer. That told me enough. I slid a flash drive across the table. That's footage. Trap sites. Night vision of a man by the cliff. Might not be Logan, but someone in his circle. Enough to start a chain. Jake stared at it. "Why give this to me?" "Because you're already in, and I want you to feel the weight of it." He pushed it back. "You want real justice? You take that to the right hands." "Already did. Send a copy to Gary. He's contacting federal wildlife. It's too late to stop this." That cracked him. His jaw tightened. He stood up, fast. "You're going to regret this. Not more than you already do." He walked out. Didn't look back. The door slammed too hard behind him. I stayed in that booth another hour, watching the door. No one else came in. I stirred my coffee, never drank it. My mind wasn't calm. It was calculating, remembering every detail of Jake's reactions, every muscle that twitched when I said Logan's name. He knew something, maybe more than I thought. The next morning, just after sunrise, I loaded little one into the truck. No crate, just a blanket and the open road. I drove slow, taking turns with both hands tight on the wheel. The mountains looked softer in that early light, like they didn't remember the blood spilled the week before. We drove until the road became too narrow for wheels. Then I carried him the last half mile. My arms ached, but it felt right. A weight I wanted to carry. We reached the clearing where I first saw a mother bear 2 years ago. A quiet place. No traps. No footprints. Just forest. The moss was thick, the air damp, and somewhere nearby, a stream babbled without care. I knelt and unwrapped the blanket. The cub looked up at me, sniffed the air, and hesitated. "Go on," I said. "This is yours now. You don't belong in shadows." It took a few seconds, then it limped into the trees. Stopped once, looked back, then disappeared. Just like that. No music. No moment. Just gone. I stood there longer than I should have. My knees hurt. My throat ached. My fingers were clenched into fists, and I didn't know why. On the way back, I got a call. Gary's voice was low. "Feds are in. Quiet investigation. Logan's on their radar. Your footage helped, but it won't move fast. Might take months. Maybe longer. That's fine. As long as it moves. You should lay low, Mike. This won't sit well with the locals. I'm already packed. I've been packed since the night I saw those eyes in the trees." I didn't go home. Just kept driving. Town after town. No plan. Just space. Motel to motel. A duffel bag, a thermos, and a head full of ghosts. Sometimes, when I close my eyes, I still see those two figures outside my cabin. The way they stood in silence, like they were deciding whether I lived or died. Sometimes I dream I opened the door and they were inside already. And sometimes I dream they were never there at all. Other times, I see little one limping into the woods, alone but alive. The sound of his paws on the leaves. The moment he vanished like smoke. And I wonder if he's still out there. I like to believe he is. And sometimes I wonder what kind of world we're leaving behind. Not just for bears. For all of us. Maybe we're all limping through it. Trying to find a patch of forest that hasn't been poisoned yet. A place untouched. Or at least unbroken. Something wild. Something free. Something worth leaving behind. Because when all this is over, and the trucks leave, and the trees regrow, maybe someone else will come here and feel the silence. Maybe they'll hear something moving through the underbrush and pause, wondering if it's just wind, or something braver, something that survived. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough.